Okay, so you're Casey, and you grew up in Wisconsin.
Yep.
Jehovah's Witness.
Yep.
Right? Is that sort
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the line, you lost your faith, and you're here at the Atheist Convention.
Yep.
So what's the short version of
The
that?
short version is started questioning in 8th grade. Very specifically when I was reading Greek and Roman mythology.
Hey.
I was really into it. I thought it was so cool, all these different gods.
Yeah.
But then part of me was like, did they really believe this stuff about these different gods and things? And I started thinking, but wait, what do I believe? What I believe really doesn't make all that much sense either.
Yeah.
And then kind of through 8th grade, high school, still believed in God and was still biased towards Christian in general, not specifically Jehovah's Witnesses anymore.
Okay.
And then I was trying different churches. One of my friends with Lutheran, went to her with that church, tried a few different things. Eventually, by the time I was in college, didn't accept Christianity anymore.
Yeah. But still a theist.
Still a theist. Still believed in a God. Or at least I wasn't sure if I did, to be more honest. I wasn't sure if I did. I was leaning towards there being a God. Searching for evidence of one. Didn't find any evidence, and eventually just had to give up the belief.
Yeah. What did you think of, because you mentioned the Greeks and Romans, did you, like obviously in 8th grade you're not reading like the classical philosophers, you know?
I mean, I read the Iliad. I mean like
Aristotle, like, because the classical philosophers talk about God a lot, but not many people have read that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
But have you read it? Have you like thought sort of like about the bigger question of God since then? Where like, because obviously thinkers across history have kind of tried to understand what do they think about God, why would we think God is real and stuff, and what sort of impressions have been left on you from that? Not saying you've read a ton of philosophy. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I haven't read a lot of
general.
philosophy. I've tried reading a few things, but
because a lot of people have simplistic views of what history has been, and I don't myself claim I know.
Well, what was interesting was when I was in Malaysia, which is a largely Islamic country, I had a really good Shia friend and a very good Sunni friend, and we would have long conversations about Islam. I read the Quran. I even tried fasting for a month, which was a great experience.
Wow, like during Ramadan?
During Ramadan, yeah.
I've always thought that fasting sounded a little better, because you could still eat it.
Oh, yeah. It's basically like intermittent fasting. It's like you can eat before sunrise and eat after sunset.
It's now a lot of people's diet.
Yeah,
like,
it is.
Do it to it.
Yep. So I had good conversations with them, and they seemed to have a slightly more logical version of God, to me anyway, that kind of answered some of my questions about the Christian version of God. But then at the end of the day, I still didn't find any evidence to believe in it. I just found it more logically...
consistent.
Yeah.
Okay. So like some of the Islamic philosophers, you know, like in like 1000 AD, were producing interesting philosophical arguments for God, which stopped
Kalam.
around then too. The Kalam and stuff like that. Not just that, but anyway, this is very interesting because they inherited the classical tradition.
It really seemed to me, when I was reading the Quran, just kind of a side point, it really felt like it was the Torah 3.0. Like, it seemed like Christianity built off of Judaism, and then it really seemed to me that, for lack of a better word, I shouldn't say plagiarize, but I cannot think of a better one.
I know what you mean.
It seems like they rewrote it, maybe took out some of the contradictions, added their own cultural things into it, kind of adjusted the stories a little bit.
It does leave that impression, and I know when I've talked to imams, and we've done some interviews as well, and I've had some come and talk to my classes as well when I taught history classes. So like, because they talk about events from the New Testament as well, and you know, of course, some of the facts are different from they are in the Gospels. So that's one of the points of my conversations has been like, you know, so you have a few things that are different from the Gospel accounts.
Yeah.
So, you know, how are you confident this is true? What do you think about Jesus? And so, like, they have the view, right, that there's a whole lost gospel.
He's a prophet.
And all this. And but again, it's the same kind of questions. Like, if you were a Christian reading it, you should be asking of your text, you know, like, how would you know that's true? So you, so basically by like college, I guess, is that when that was, where you're kind of, or is it after college?
Yeah, freshman year, I was still believing God, kind of, but not sure. looking for evidence to support it.
Yeah.
And it was probably that was more freshman year. I was kind of exploring everything. Sophomore, junior year, kind of took a pause. Probably because I transferred to England. I was going to school in England for a couple of years, and maybe there's less just wasn't a topic that people were chatting about as much, and maybe I just wasn't. I had other distractions, so I didn't really explore it as much. My second and third year. My fourth year, I went as an exchange student from England to Malaysia, and in Malaysia, it was not sure if you know about Malaysia, Islamic country, but also accepting of Christians, Buddhists, different religions, very pluralistic that way. Mm-hmm. So I had friends that were of all types of religions, and it was a common discussion point. So that's when I started to explore a little bit more, learn about Islam from my Muslim friends. Yeah. So yeah, but
well, and I mean, it's sort of like growing up Jehovah's Witness. I guess you probably felt, or maybe you felt like we're the true ones up till 8th grade or whatever. Yeah. But at the same time, because everybody who grows up, you kind of it's all you know. And then at some point you're like, well, there's not as many of us as I thought, or there's other people out there. Like everybody goes through that at some level.
Yeah, there's some of that too. I wouldn't think that was like a main driving force of it, though.
Yeah.
Because we were raised to believe that everyone else is just misled. Satan controls the world. So
I don't know a lot about Jehovah's Witnesses. So.
They believe that their religion is the one true religion. Everyone else has it wrong. Other Christian denominations, they're all wrong. It's only Jehovah's Witnesses that have the one truth, is what they believe.
So what's like the destiny of people who are Baptists? What's their
from a Jehovah's Witness point of view?
Yeah.
That they won't. So they don't believe in a hell. You might know that already, but
I didn't know that, no.
Oh, okay. They believe in like basically 2 levels of paradise. They believe that the earth will be first destroyed and then reborn as a new paradise earth, and that's where like the rank and file of Jehovah's Witnesses, the vast majority of Jehovah's Witnesses will go. Not any other religions, because they're not saved. But Jehovah's Witnesses will inherit the earth. There'll be a paradise for them. The kind of the next level, like the what do they call them? What's the term? Like the more elite Jehovah's Witnesses, they'll get to go to heaven and oversee the world with God and all the angels.
Okay.
So it's kind of like tip of my tongue, not recalling the word for it.
And the Baptists are just nowhere?
Yeah, and they believe everyone else there won't be a held up fire to punish everyone. They'll just not exist.
Yeah, they'll annihilate.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Is there anything that you sort of like miss about that? I don't know. Theism or because you didn't just
not theism. I miss my family because they shun people who leave. So the community.
So you don't have really connection to them?
No, not really.
Wow.
For the most part, not everyone's as strict as with the shunning policy as other people are.
Yeah, I think I have talked to somebody about that before. Actually.
Yeah.
That there's pretty.
So but for example, my dad hasn't met my son.
Oof.
Yeah. So they're.
Yeah, that would be very, very hard.
Yeah. Okay. My mom is only. I have 2 kids, 8 and 2. Or sorry, 8 and 3 can be. And my mom's only met them a couple times each. So yeah, there's the family I miss, but not the religion itself.
Okay. Yeah, I see. What about so people, forget just Jehovah's Witness, right? But just the idea that a lot of people nowadays maybe not even believe in any kind of like the Bible God or any particular God, but they think, well, there is some purpose to everything, and there's even justice, like in some way there'll be something that's like a justice, and that's a very strong, I think, appeal to a lot of people.
Some people believe in karma, some believe in heaven, hell, different
so,
things.
So I mean, is your view sort of like there's that stuff? There's none of that?
I think it's on us to try to create that. I think our purpose is up to us individually and collectively. Decide what our own purpose is, and. Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it'd be nice if bad people got punished, but I think the only punishment will be in our own justice system for that. I don't believe in like an afterlife punishment or reward system.
So, but you said it would be nice because obviously some people get away with crimes, right?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, the easy example is like, of course, Hitler, the very bad people of history.
Yeah,
like obviously we would, like them to be punished instead of just getting the easy way out. But. Yeah.
How do you view like morality then? I don't mean this is some like trap thing. I'm asking very honestly. Like, do you think of? I don't mean it even like in a like. Do you think it's Darwinian or something? I don't mean that. But do you think of? Because I was talking to another guy here at the convention about like things that are right or wrong, and I told him, it doesn't feel to us. It doesn't feel to me like some things I think are good or bad are only local.
Sorry, what do you mean by local?
Local meaning like it's bad for us in our community under our rules, but it would be okay if people did the opposite somewhere else. So like if they colonize Mars and then they separate from Earth. If Elon Musk colonizes Mars, and they separate from Earth more or less, and then they live for like 5,000 years, and then we reconnect. And in their society, murder's not such a big deal as long as you have a reason. I don't know. Something, like that. It sounds really bizarre, but we would think right now that something's gone terribly wrong. That's just bad. Always bad. Everywhere. It doesn't feel like there's a context in which that would be good.
Yeah.
We would call it good. So it feels universal. It doesn't feel like it's just our rules and our purpose and stuff. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Like, why does it feel that way? It feels like it's more useful. The word is transcendent, but I mean, it feels like it's beyond just you and me.
Yeah.
It could be 5,000 years from now. It wouldn't matter if you and I we're long dead. It would still seem like that's wrong.
I think it's.
What do you think of that?
When I kind of take the perspective of when I hear people talk about morality, they're really talking about like well-being.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about well-being, I think that we can, if we agree that morality is about well-being, then there's certain things that are...
I don't disagree with that. I think morality, I don't have no problem just saying well-being. We think it's well-being for, and so it would be the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it, you could also say it's wrong or it's bad or something. I don't even really care the terms, but it feels like I'm talking just like my personal experience. I feel like it seems like it's not just my own, like we have these rules we agreed on here for now. Mm-hmm. It feels like it's way bigger than that, and I don't feel like there's like that's something that doesn't feel like it's just there's great evidence for it.
Yeah, I guess.
You know what I mean?
I guess
Other than
that's
our
maybe
experience.
where we have slightly different feelings about it, because I don't have a sense of well-being or morality outside of this world. Maybe that will change if someday we encounter aliens, or maybe if we colonize Mars, and then so that could potentially. I mean, I read science fiction, love science fiction.
Yeah.
But as of right now, I think morality is just about how we interact with each other, how we look out for the well-being of individuals and society as a whole, and how we balance those two things.
Yeah.
And I think we can come to some agreements about things that are generally, of course there'll always be gray areas, there'll be moral dilemmas that we have to deal with, but generally some things are obviously bad for well-being, some things are obviously good for well-being.
Yeah.
And then we get into tricky areas of...
But even just that, like those things that are obvious, we're going to probably agree on for most of those, that part, probably on at least most of it, the big ones, like the one I described. And like a society where rape's okay, it's like, well, that's...
Yeah, we're gonna...
That would just be bad.
Yeah.
And it does. What I'm trying to say is it doesn't feel like it's just a local agreement.
Well, I don't think it's a local agreement either. I think you could
What,
say rape is bad because it's against the well-being of the person, the victim. The victim is obviously worse off because of it. Not only that, but if rape is happening in a society, then we're all going to be more fearful of that. So it's bad for the victim. It's bad for everyone who's being fearful of it. So I think it's very easy to say that's bad for well-being.
Yeah, but then that would make it universal and beyond just us, because it's something that's true no matter what, regardless of what the society is.
Where there are people, that are conscious.
Of course. I'm talking about for humans. Yeah, for human societies.
Yeah.
I only ask just because it's almost like mathematics. You're a scientist guy, right?
I'm student teaching. I'm going to be a physics teacher.
Yeah. Do you think of mathematics as just in our head or like external? Like it's part of the objective material reality, or is it just
a really good philosophical question?
Yeah.
And
the reason I ask is because it relates to morality, right?
Yeah.
It's a similar thing.
I can give you what I think it is, with a big caveat. I don't really know.
That's probably the best answer.
So what I think it is, I do feel like it's outside of us. That it's how it's a tool that we've developed to understand the universe.
But it seems like it's in the universe too, though.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because it's a really wild idea for anybody, right? That it might be out in the universe. I think it's just a wild idea. I find that interesting to me. So I've interviewed some people who say they think it's all in our heads, and I'm like, it doesn't seem like that.
Yeah.
But it's not an easy thing to, like, how would you prove it and how would you account for that? You know, it's I don't know. I don't really know. But it's an interesting question to me.
It seems like it's related to the question of solipsism, where you can't really disprove it, but we have to live our lives to be functioning people. That we're not, everything's not in our own mind, that there is a world around us, that I'm not the only being. I think it'd be extraordinarily arrogant to think it was all in our own heads.
It's so, like, this is one of the big, forget God, but that there's a part of our reality, our experience, where you don't like arrive at the beliefs or the judgments or whatever just by like the way you would decide certain scientific questions. So I feel like mathematics is one of those kinds of things. This isn't my idea. This is really common, you know, for
to be debate. Clarify that I understand your idea.
Like we can't really prove mathematics is external to our minds in the same way we can do things in science to show they're true. It's not. I don't think it's not usually regarded by philosophers and stuff.
I could see how it would be a challenge to prove that, but I don't know if I necessarily agree that we couldn't prove that it's external of us. Well,
I mean, we can't, like, you know, in philosophy, like, you can't prove the other person's mind exists. That's like one of the things, you know. So we could just have said that. I don't even really care.
Yeah.
My point is, there's just like to me, there's an inescapable part of our experience where there's just things that are part of our reality. They're easier to accept as real, as trustworthy, like your senses and things like that. But there's no way to, like, say, but I need scientific evidence to prove that's true, because it's not really open to scientific evidence.
So
it's just a part of reality.
Kind of
the way it is.
Presuppositions that we have, certain presuppositions
some call it properly basic beliefs. That's a term that a philosopher used. Some call it other things, but this basically they're a priori type things.
Yeah.
I know. I've interviewed some people, and they're like, they try as much as possible to reject anything that science can't show. And I'm like, I don't see how you can.
Well, I think we need to have a few basic things that we do need to accept. That we
axioms, you mean? Yeah. Basically,
the easy one is like logic. To say that we need to prove logic with logic seems circular.
It is circular.
And we have to just kind of accept at least a couple. You know, it's been a while since I've read about this stuff, but like a few basic postulates.
Yeah, like the law of non-contradiction.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Stuff. Yeah. Which is not just logic; it's also like metaphysics. That is right, because it's saying a thing that exists, actually has real existence, can't at the same time and in the same way be another thing that exists. So it's not even just logic; it relates to like metaphysics. It's like it's a law that's like applying to actual reality. It's saying, in other words, for Aristotle, it's not just a logical principle you have to accept in order to get on with it. It's the way the fundamental nature of reality, metaphysically, has to be. And that's a little different thing than just logic, you know? Anyway, I thought I would ask because you're into physics and you're going to teach physics.
I enjoy it. Still scratching the surface, though.
Yeah.
I only have a bachelor's degree.
Have you done any stuff about time, like A theory time or B theory time?
It's so interesting.
It's like so wild.
About like special relativity and general relativity.
Yeah, because so I used to listen to some philosophers who were like, B theory time cannot be right, and they would argue on philosophical grounds.
I'm not sure what that means. What is B theory of time?
See, now you're not supposed to. Not while we're recording, because then I have to pretend I know what I'm talking about.
No worries.
Well, I mean, the basic idea is that a theory of time is like the way we experience it, linearly. Time seems linear.
Yeah.
And the future is not yet, doesn't exist yet, but it's not existing right now, and the past doesn't exist right now, but it did exist, or whatever. So it's the way we experience it. But the B theory is...
Oh, the block theory of time.
Yeah, that it's kind of like a volume.
How the past is just as real as the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do exist in a way that's coterminous, or I don't know what the term is for it, like simultaneous, if that's the word. So it's more, it's what makes sense of relativity and some of these things. And the physicist that I sort of try and rely on, Aaron Wall is one guy, he's at Cambridge, and I get to pretend I understand a tenth of what he's talking about. But he's like, yeah, B theory of time, it has to be,
This is something that I've only learned about in the last few weeks, and I've very basic introduction to it is something I want to dive into more.
Yeah,
and learn
you
more about
probably
it.
already understand it better than I do.
No,
I don't even pretend that I'm have a view,
Yeah.
But it kind of reminds me of that. But at the same time, no pun intended, it is relevant. Like, it's hugely relevant, and it affects the way one would look at reality and how the scientific theories could be understood and stuff like that. So I always find if I just say, hey, let's just forget God for a moment and talk about just fundamental reality,
Sure.
it's not always as nice and clean, and the way we want things to be true and how we feel confident they're true, nature doesn't always play with our game.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It doesn't. Nature's not obliged to make sense to us.
No. So I don't. The fact that it's as rationally intelligible as it is wild.
And our intuition is with special relativity and time.
Yeah.
Time's not constant. Time can slow down, speed up. It's not intuitive because we're not used to moving at relativistic speeds.
Right.
If some point in the future we were traveling through the stars and we were moving at half the speed of light, 3/4 the speed of light, maybe it would become more intuitive because we would regularly be traveling at those speeds.
Yeah.
But since we aren't, it's not intuitive.
Yeah. I was just curious because of your background, how you think about it, and I'm always looking for people, thinkers, that get beyond a simplistic kind of debate, and are really trying to grapple, like we were talking about classical philosophers, where they try to bring everything together.
Yeah.
So what's it been like with your family then?
Oh, I have a new family now, and it's been amazing.
So all the family shows, even
Oh no, it's split. Half of them are still in religion, half of them are out. Most that are still in the religion shun. A couple don't. They kind of bend the rules to still chat with us every now and then.
Okay.
But yeah, now
your new family is your wife.
Married. I have 2 kids.
Yeah. And her family, you were not Jehovah's Witness?
No, they're not.
Okay. And so you hang out with them more, I guess, and see them some.
Yeah, except for most of them are in Vietnam, so we hang out every couple of years.
Yeah, her family's from Vietnam.
Yeah, and another state too. She has some family in the U.S. My wife's originally from Vietnam.
Yeah.
Immigrated when she was 15. Went to college here in the U.S.
Yeah. What's it like? You're a parent now. You grew up with one kind of way of doing family, and now it's just I
have to totally relearn how to do it.
Okay.
I only had bad examples growing up.
Okay.
So some books have been.
Where do you go to? Yeah.
Yeah, I have some really useful books. Positive Discipline is one of them that made a big difference for me.
Okay.
I've read that was probably the one that made the most difference because the only thing I always taught was to be hit every time you misbehave, and I don't believe in hitting kids.
Yeah.
So I took what I grew up with and basically threw it away. Had to find a new way of parenting, and Positive Discipline is kind of a philosophy, growth mindset, combining it with some other authors I've read. So I've done a lot of reading on parenting, especially when we were expecting our first one. And that's made a big difference in helping to kind of get some ideas, at least get different things to try. Are you a parent?
Yeah, I've got 4 kids and 3 grandkids.
Yeah, so you'll know, not everything works for every kid, but as long as you have enough ideas, you can keep trying different things. Then bring it back to the religion part is I really believe in teaching them how to think instead of what to think.
Yeah.
My daughter, she has religious friends, and she has different ideas, and I don't tell her that they're wrong. I just try to teach her logic, critical thinking the best that I can at an age-appropriate level, which right now isn't, too deep into the woods since she's only 7. But basically just giving them the tools to kind of learn, figure things out for themselves.
Yeah, I think that's what parents should do, right? But it's very important to. You can't decide for your kids anyway.
Yeah.
Right? You couldn't, no matter how much you wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, but give them the critical thinking to kind of question everything, even question what I'm teaching them.
Oh, you're going to really enjoy it when they start questioning you.
They already are.
Really questioning you.